Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Calvin Beach, my colleague, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, nationals all. I can't say adequately what a pleasure it is for me to be here. As the late Dr. Walter Rodney used to say, grounded, having a grounding with the brothers and the sisters, because that's exactly what we are here to do. To have a little chit-chat with the brothers and the sisters of St. Christopher and Nevis. I'm here to maybe hear from you more than I want you to hear from me. And I want to engage you, we want to engage you and to have a little dialogue. I want to thank you most sincerely for turning out in your numbers to this, what I consider this very important meeting about the situation in our home country. And St. Kitts and Nevis is as much yours as it is mine. And so I want us to understand that all of us have an equal stake in what should be happening there, what's happening there, and how we like to see it going. So I really want to thank you, and I want to thank you for the interest you have continued to show, the interest you have shown and the interest you continue to show in your country, in our country. I have had occasions to visit here, numerous occasions, and I can't help but feel your sincerity and your interest and your concerns about your country. And we share that. And I want you to know how much we appreciate that. We know people migration started for basically one reason, for people to leave home to better their conditions, to develop themselves in all kinds of ways, intellectually, culturally, financially, you name it. But I know at all times you have the interest of your country at heart. In fact, the stories told of those folks who left for England in the early 50s and so on, when they asked them, how long they intend to stay, most invariably they would put down 1 year. Nobody wanted to stay more than 1 year. They spent their entire lifetime. But the object was to come out and to do so much in a year to get back home, but that never happened. But still, St. Kitts was home for them, and they always showed an interest. And I find that so much here with nationals as I travel. St. Kitts is just a special place. St. Kitts and Nevis, just a special place. It's a lovely place. It's God's gift to this world, and we love it, and we care about it. You care about it as much as I care about it, and so I know how much you care about it because I know how much I care about it. And my interest in politics and so on is really for my country. I want to encourage you to continue to show that interest and that concern. We benefit immensely not only from your training and your expertise that you have developed over the years here, but we benefit from the remittances that you send back home. We benefit from the skills, the training. We benefit from, in so many ways, from you. And I want you to continue to show that interest. St. Kitts and Nevis would never be able to develop and advance and prosper without people like you, without the nationals abroad. They have more nationals abroad than we have at home. And so that really tells the whole story. And so I want to thank you. I want to express and place on record our sincere thanks to all of you for what you have done for your homeland, and to ask you to continue to show that interest. I want to say just a little bit about who I am and what has shaped my own life, what has made me to who I am, so that you could see exactly where I'm coming from. I think it is important to do that so that you get a little background of my own passion and my own, interest and concern about St. Kitts and Nevis and petitions and bills. I don't think you want anybody of more humble beginnings than real. I mean, you can't come from more humble beginnings. I went to school. I was born in McKnight, really, but grew up basically in West Boston village because I had an aunt who lived there, Mr. Grass, and in a sense she was a little more well off than my mother and the other sisters, and so I sort of we gravitated there because this way we were able to get something to eat and a way to exist. I come from a situation where I went to school, there was some school without shoes, and went to school in a flower bag shirt, and sometimes you come home and there's nothing to eat. My mother was a husker, a trader. I had to do the rounds she used to buy stuff to sell, and so sometimes I would come home at 12 o'clock for lunch and nothing there, and she would tell me, make a round and see if you get something to sell. And if you get something to sell, you might get some lunch, you might get some bread and some lemonade and so on. And those are the conditions under which I grew up. And so we gravitated towards my aunt in West Bastille, and so because she would provide for us, she would send out little things in the evening for my mother when she didn't have it. That was Irish Town School, and some of the younger ones will know, Ken and son, Elwin would know, that was the all-age school that we grew up. And then we had the Bastille Senior School that came into existence. At the Irish Town School, you could have gone to school without shoes and you could have gone in a flower bag shirt. But by the time the Bastille High School, Bastille Senior School came, we had to go to school. Silky, you remember, you had to have a uniform. You had to have a blue shirt for the boys and khaki pants and brown socks and brown shoes. And so when my turn come, because you were to come to age, when my turn come to go to school, my mother said, well, you have to forget this. You can't go on. You're going to get shoes and socks and so on. You're making joke. My sister was going to school, my older sister, Vida. Some of you went well, Ken and those guys, if you remember my sister. And she said, your sister going, I can't afford more than that. So you stop from school. And I said, boy, that's crazy. That's crazy, I can't do that. So I went and looked a job as a newspaper boy in order to go to school. I went in the Daily Bulletin. All of you here, well, the older ones will know the Daily Bulletin with Mr. Prokop, and I went and I got a job in Daily Bulletin so that I could go get money to buy my school books and my uniform and so on to go to school. Those were the conditions on which I went to school. And then so, as a newspaper boy, selling newspapers, 3 cents was for a paper. I got 1 cent for each paper I sold. And so I did that. I was able to buy my uniforms and so on and go to school. And when time come for exams and so on, it was the College of Preceptors then. Again, some of the younger ones remember that, the College of Preceptors. And I thought I would be prepared to do my exams. And my mother said, exams? You get money from me to exams. No exams. So I left school without any formal qualification. When I left school, I had no qualification, no CXC, no GCE, no College of Preceptors, no nothing. But I was always interested in education and development myself, so I went to Mr. Washington Archibald afternoon classes and got a couple of GCE, accounts and English and so on, and then went on to Ruskin College in Oxford, did a diploma in development studies. Then I went to Sussex University and did a degree in economics. And so that is basically my educational background under, like I said, real difficult and challenging circumstances. And so that is what led me into the labor movement and what it stood for, what I believe it stood for, and so on. Grew up basically in the labor movement and was the first youth coordinator of Young Labour, was a member of Young Labour, first youth coordinator, became the chairman of the Bratcher Youth Center in 1975, I think, or thereabout. Bratcher had identified me and put me on a, what you call a toast board with people like Freddie Lamb and Kishu Shanaromani. And as I said, Kishu Shanaromani, let me take this opportunity. I should have done it at the beginning and the chairman should have done it. I want for us to just pause for 1 minute silence to express our condolences to the wife of Nasir Shine Maynard, who passed away, and I understand the funeral is tomorrow. I just want us to pause for 1 minute silence. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to do that last year and Roy and well, Manny Martin Thomas, include Manny in that. Those were my heroes as a boy, soccer. I mean, Manchester and Blackpool and so on. Ken, I'm right, okay? Those were our heroes. We believe that those were the players. Those are who we saw. I mean, what we see now in terms of soccer and so on, Roy and Lassie and Manny and the rest of them could have given some of the best we see now around for the money. And so I want to extend to you, Roy, and the rest of the family, and please convey our sympathies to Lassie. Yeah, I remember that because I when I said Kishu, because Kishu, like I said, is somebody I knew from a long time, and he's very ill now. He's in Florida, in Jacksonville, I think. He is, and I just want us to remember in your prayers. Kishu, Lupinachi, Colin Pereira, and a host of others like that. I didn't realize it then, but maybe at that time I was being identified and trained for a time such as this. But I mentioned that to say that the training and the experience and the exposure and the circumstance in which I grew up. And so it was not any surprise after my studies and I went back home to St. Kitts when the Labour Party was looking for a candidate to replace the late Venerable Joseph Nathaniel France. I was chosen. And I just want to say a little bit about that, because Comrade France, West Bastia has only known 2 candidates since since elections, electoral politics. That is Comrade France from I think is 1946 until he retired in 1989, and myself from 89 until now. So West Bastia is a special constituency of the Labour Party, a special constituency in St. Kitts. And so when I was chosen, I was chosen from among a whole list of persons, of contenders that wanted to do that. And I think I was chosen, and I want to express my own gratitude to those persons who thought that I was a replacement, a good replacement for Common France in that constituency. And so I went into electoral politics in 1989, March of 1989. So I've been a representative, a parliamentarian for some 24 years. And the Labour Party was returned to power in 1995, in July of 1995, and I became the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Other Things from 1995 until I resigned in January, 30th of January this year. So that was 17 years or thereabout. It would be 18 years, it would be 18 years in July. And so you would imagine that somebody who grew up in the labor movement, and I gave you that background so you could see, you could understand that this isn't anything that just came to me overnight or by chance. This is basically my own. I have a grounding in the movement, a grounding in the Labour Party. I've been there, I understand what it is about and so on. So you would understand the difficulty for me in having been there to part with the Labour movement. Well, and I shouldn't say I parted with the Labour movement. I'm not parted with the Labour movement because I still subscribe to the philosophy, the values, the traditions, the beliefs of the Labour Party, but I've parted with Dr. Douglas. Because I think that he has lost his way, and we need to have a review of where we are going. So I resigned basically because my conscience left me with no other choice. No other choice. And so I decided that I had to do that. It has not been easy. It has not been easy. It was not easy for us over the last 17 years or so in the government. And we recognized very early that there were going to be difficulties and challenges with the Prime Minister's leadership style. And that came to the fore very early, from 1995, very, very early. In fact, people like Limor, St. John Payne, Bryant, they all had difficulties with the Prime Minister's style and what he was doing, and expressed them to me personally, but they also expressed them widely. Anybody who would listen, anybody who would hear, those were expressed. But we thought, in the interest of the party, in the interest of taking the country forward, that we tried to see how we could get things back on field, get things sorted out, get things straightened, get us on track, let us understand what is the real motive, what is the real agenda of the Labour Party and of the country, and we tried doing that. We have had, as in the interest of getting that done, we have had several retreats, cabinet retreats, party retreats, in order to address these issues. And I just want to mention 3 of those retreats. One was in 2000, when it is Kim Collins won the Commonwealth Championship, it was 2000 or 2001. Could be in 2000, when Kim Collins won the championship, the Commonwealth Championship. We were at a retreat. I remember that. We were at a retreat. It was in August of that year. We had a retreat over in built the treaty over in your constituency, Tim, the hotel, Artist Plantation. And that's as early as we were having problems. As early as 2000. We got in office in 95, and with all the challenges right up there. And in 95, in 2000, we had this difficulty. We had this retreat, and it all, well, not almost, it broke up. Because the Prime Minister did not understand really how the system of government works. And I had reason to give the retreat the benefit of my own research and so on. And he was telling the Prime Minister that really what he is presiding over is a cabinet system of government, not a presidential system, not a chief executive system, but a presidential system of government where the cabinet, where the Prime Minister is just the chairman of the cabinet. And so the system that we operate is not a system of presidential or chief executive government of cabinet ministers. Cabinet ministers are expressly, collectively responsible for the policies and actions of the government of which they are part, of which they are members. And virtually no powers are formally vested in the office of the Prime Minister. And those formal powers the Prime Minister does have are powers of patronage and not of policy. He's the chairman of the collective, which is called the cabinet. Because that is the principle on which we work. Once we have a cabinet, we appoint the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is appointed because we support him, and he gives each minister a ministry. The minister is responsible to the cabinet and to the country. And so the Prime Minister has no authority to interfere in a minister's ministry. So right at the beginning, we had those problems. And up to now, those are still the same problems. You all would know of the Dubai affair where somebody was appointed in my ministry as the Minister of Foreign Affairs without my knowledge. And they could say that started, this is 2012 this happened, or 2011, but those things started in 2011 years ago. And this was the battle we've been having with the Prime Minister over all these years, things like that. And so we've been trying to deal with these matters. But what really, I think, was, as the people would say, the straw that broke the camel back was the land for debt swap. Yeah. That really is the bill, that was the situation, that were the circumstances in which we thought that this is almost impossible to continue. You are aware that we have a national debt, probably one of the highest in the world. Recognize, and if the truth be told, but because we are cabinet and Westminster system, we have to take collective responsibility for that. But the truth be told, if the Prime Minister was listening and had taken advice from inside the cabinet and outside the cabinet, we would not reach that situation that we're in today. But I'm not going to, dwell on that. I will say there's some collective responsibility. But the truth is the Prime Minister's own recklessness and callousness that really has brought us to that situation. But like I said, we have to take some responsibility as members of cabinet for that happening. But we had a debt which we had to address. And we decided that when you owe people, you have to pay them. That's how we grew up. That's the basic principle. That's how poor people live. That when you owe people, whether it's as a household, whether it's a government, whether it's a business, when you owe, you have to pay. And so it isn't that we don't think that the debt must be paid, but we believe that there were a number of ways in which the debt could be paid. We didn't have to go into the land for debt swap. We believe we are giving certain suggestions about getting Social Security to hold some of the land in trust, because the land will belong to the people still. If Social Security has it, Social Security is a is an organization that is holding monies in trust for people, and the Social Security is owned by the people. And so we thought that was one way. We thought another way of dealing with the debt was the SIDF fund, the Sugar Industry Diversification Foundation. Lots of money that the Prime Minister is just spending about without any accountability and any transparency. We thought that was the way that those funds should have been in the consolidated fund and used to pay down the debt rather than giving away our lands. But not only that is the way it was done. I mean, Timothy himself, and the Deputy Prime Minister, Timothy is Senior Minister, two was a Senior Minister. Well, you will be again, don't worry. the two most senior ministers in the government. The two most senior ministers in the government. You know, when we know what was going to happen the night before it happened. Parliament was supposed to be Friday. The Thursday night, we got the order paper to say that this is going to be discussed. Immediately I called Tim. I said, Tim, could you believe this? And I'm supposed to be the leader of government business, eh? I'm supposed to get the order paper and say what's going to go on the paper and where we're going to have Parliament. But this is happening. On the Thursday night, we get in the order paper, which we know about, nothing about. We don't know what's going to be discussed. But we get this order paper, and we are supposed to go to Parliament and discuss this land bill. There was nothing more revolting than that. Nothing more disconcerting than that. In fact, I must tell you that my thesis, when I did my diploma in development studies, was on the political, social, and economic implications of the land acquisition. I wrote, my thesis was that that was the best thing to happen to St. Kitts. I wrote that. I studied that. In fact, I used to be able to recite the address by Bradshaw at the handing over, at the taking over of the lands. We are gathered here this morning, collectively, people to do the greatest responsibility that could fall on people, to take collectively all the lands of a people for posterity and forever and all connecting to that. That's what Bradshaw said. Bradshaw said in the address that when the morning of the takeover of the lands, a friend of his, I think the man's name was Watley, said this could be likened to Emancipation Day. That was the context in which the lands were taken over for the people. And we thought that if we were going to have an act that was going to, you know, remove the lands from the public ownership, that should take some discussion, it should go to the people, it should be, you know, discuss and see what's happening, see what the people feel about it. But not overnight. And so we thought that we couldn't support a bill like that. In fact, Tim will tell you that we didn't even know what we wanted to do the next morning. In fact, my first thing was, boy, we ain't got nothing to say about this thing, this bill here. You know, we shouldn't be saying anything about this bill. We don't want to be part of it. But then we thought, how could you sit down in a parliament, hearing a discussion, a debate about dispossessing the people of lands without making a contribution? So we decided we will speak on it. So we got up and we spoke about it. We said publicly that we are opposed to that. We don't think that that's the way we should deal with the debt. We recognize we have a debt and we want to do something about it because poor people are honest people, are honorable people, and would always want to honor a debt that they have. I know that from growing up. My mother used to send me to go on every shop in McKnight, Miss Buckley, Miss Benjamin, Miss Hodge, to trust on a cardboard, the market on a piece of paper, and she makes sure that every time she sell and she get money, she send you a pay because she wants to get trust again. So that is how it grow up. It's how poor people grow up. You know that when you owe, you have to pay. So it is a question of not paying the debt. It is a question of how you pay it. And so we decided that we were going to oppose that bill. But we didn't vote against the bill because we weren't saying then that, you know, that we were against we were going to vote against the government. We wanted the government to take note of what was happening, to reflect, to review, and see if we could do something different. So we just made our views known. The Prime Minister went and he passed the bill. Even though, we weren't in Parliament when the bill was passed. Because if we were there and we voted against it, the bill would not have passed. But like I said, our intention was not to vote against the bill. We just wanted to bring it to the attention of the country and the Parliament that that was not the best way to go. But the Prime Minister, recognizing what would happen if he has a bill anytime that we don't agree with, he could lose the vote, and so he decided, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to bring another bill to Parliament, and that is where the increase in senators' bill came into being. I don't know if you are aware about the increase in senators' bill. So what is the increase in senators' bill? The increase in senators' bill is a bill to increase the nominated members in the House. You don't want anything more undemocratic than that. You don't want anything more disrespectful to our democracy than that. Here is it. The country, the people of the country, elect 11 members of Parliament to discuss the issues that is the foundation of democracy. That's how democracy is based. The authority is based by the free consent of the people. And the people of the country voted to elect 11 elected members. And to say, to represent them in Parliament, to speak for them in Parliament. And the Prime Minister recognized that 6 of the 11 elected members, if they have a problem with anything he said, he could lose a vote, so he decided he would bring in nominated members. This is something that Bradshaw and them were speaking about in 1952 and 1956 with adult suffrage, when you all would know how the Parliament were comprised. The Parliament were comprised of a number of nominated members who would make decisions which were in the interest of the general populace. These were the people from the planter class and people from the business class and people from different walks of life who would vote in Parliament on legislation that were not necessarily at times in the interest of the working class. And that is what people were fighting about. That's how adult suffrage come about. The elected principle. And here's it. Douglas, by one stroke of the pen, want to turn back the hands of time 60 years. This is what we were fighting for in 1952 with adult suffrage, to get people elected to represent people. And Douglas decided by himself he can make a law to increase the number of senators in the Parliament so that he could frustrate the wishes of the elected members. But you don't want nothing more revolting than that. And that is what really, for me, speaking for myself, that made the difference. I decided, no way. And so people are asking, why so long? Why only now? Why only now? Because we recognize by then that if you don't do something now, the last state will be worse than the first. That was really the straw that broke the camel's back. That was like committing suicide, political suicide. And so we opposed the bill and voted against it. It is not a question about now listening and discussing and take note and so on. This was really our political future at stake, the democracy at stake, the country at stake. And so we decided we will vote against it. So not only did we vote against the bill, but what the Prime Minister did, he still brought in an Senator Attorney General. And so I felt so strongly about it. And there are people who feel that they call me a traitor, they call me all kind of things. I felt so strongly, personally about it, that I took the government to court. I said that was wrong. And when it is wrong, don't care who does it, it is wrong. I learned that growing up with my mother, wrong is wrong, right is right. And don't care who do it. And so this thing that you can't take the government to court because you're a member of the government, I don't buy that. That was a question of what is wrong and what is right. And so I did. And I was vindicated by the court. Vindicated by the court. The court ruled that the senator's bill was unconstitutional, null and void, and struck it down. You don't want more vindication than that. You do not want more vindication than that. And so that is what happened in terms of the sentencing bill. And so that basically is what caused the rift, the fallout, the cracks to widen in the party, and that's why we are here. And we are here to explain that situation to our nationals abroad. We are here on a 3-city tour of North America, beginning today in Toronto. And like I said, I want to thank you for responding in such short notice, because we should have come before, but the time and other plans didn't allow. So we're here today in Toronto. We travel to New York on Sunday for meeting Sunday with our nationals. Then we go to Miami on Tuesday, we meet our nationals, just to explain our situation. Because St. Kitts and Nevis belongs to all of us. We want to make sure that our country flourish and survive and prosper, not only for now, but for generations unborn. I believe that was the raison d'etre of the Labour Party. That is what the founders of the Labour Party, that is what the 1935 Buckley's Uprising was about. Better working and living conditions for our people. That's what the struggle has always been. And that is why we have to give honor and respect to those men who fought, those who made the sacrifices. Selfless, sacrificial service. What we have seen that turned into selfish, self-serving purposes. And we can't be a part of that. We want to change that. The country must come first. And so that is where we stand on this thing. And so we are asking for a new dispensation, a new order. A new order. Where we would see our country taking a new direction. We want to see a situation where we will come together as the coalition of the willing. The coalition of the willing. Where we will have national consultation on a new order of governance. Where the country should be run and must be run. A coalition of the willing. We want to see a strengthening of our national institutions, of Parliament. I mean, I'm sure you all will be ashamed of what our Parliament has become. I don't know if you have a chance to listen Parliament and to hear what takes place there. I don't know if you all have had a chance to hear the public meeting of the Labour Party in recent times. The Prime Minister and their colleagues. That is not good. That is not what we are accustomed to. That is not nice. And we can't continue that. And so, that is what we are talking about. Strengthening of our national institutions, our parliament, our cabinet, our civil service. Our civil service has become dysfunctional. This is not a civil service that persons here, the older persons, will recognize anymore. And so we want to have a strengthening of our national institutions. We want to have an opportunity for national healing and reconciliation. We believe that the divisiveness, the division, and the difficulties, the strife, we cannot continue that if we are to develop our country. We cannot continue with when the Labour Party is in, then the People's Action Movement has no role to play in terms of national development and the country. And when the People's Action Movement is in, the Labour Party has no role to play. We believe we have to seek some common ground, some consensus in terms of coming together for an opportunity for national healing and reconciliation and pooling our resources together. We have to see that St. Kitts Neves belong to petition and division, all of us, and all of us have a stake in it and must make the contributions according to our ability and our capacity. Those are the things that we are looking forward to. And so, in this new dispensation, we are hoping to see progressive legislation on matters such as constitutional and electoral reform. We know that our constitution is unique, is different. It's just a constitution that was really, in my view, not the best constitution that addressed the aspirations of a developing country. It was, for that time, it's 30 years old now, and it is time for a review of that. The relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis, the whole administrative functioning of the country needs to be addressed, and we want collectively all parties to look at constitutional reform, electoral reform. That is something that needs to be addressed. The electoral system leaves a lot to be desired. A lot to be desired. And I believe that that is something we have to deal with. Integrity in public life. That is something that was submitted from the Labour Party at the conference, the Independence Conference in 1982. It didn't get into the Independence Constitution. In fact, there was one member of the Independence team who was a member of the governing party then said that if people want to elect scamps, let them elect scamps. We find out 30 years later that that is not a good thing. And so we must have a constitution where people must elect honorable people. That is what a government is for. A government must comprise of honorable men. I think it was Hobbes or Locke, one of those 18th century philosophers, who said, without government, life will be short, nasty. Root is short and nasty. And you need government. Government is, according to them, a necessary evil, but government must be comprised of honorable men. That is why you're given the name honorable. It must mean something. And so it can be that if people want to elect a scam, they could elect a scam. And so integrity in public life is something that we want to. Something that should have been there, something that both governments have spoken about. Like I said, even in 1982 at the Independence Conference, that was submitted. In fact, it is Limo who decided that that should be a part of our constitutional provisions. It was rejected, but he, even at his death, on his dying bed, was still of the view that that is something we should have. The People's Action Movement, NRP government, had a first reading of the Integrity Public Life, never got anywhere. Labour Party, when we got in, had a first reading, never got anywhere. But that is something that we think we need. We need some constitutional provisions to guard and guide how people operate in terms of government. And so that's something that we want to have. We want to have freedom of information. People need to be more informed to make assessment and judgment and decisions based on information. And the government can't operate in a covert, underhand, secret manner. I mean, the population must be aware of what's happening, how it's going to happen, and so on, if they're to make decisions. So, all those matters need to be dealt with. Campaign financing. I mean, campaign financing is something that we'll have to deal with as well. Not who has the most money will win the government, but that people with the party with the best policies, the best programs, and so on, who has the best appeal to the general population, to the citizens, to the voters, will win the government. Not people be able to buy elections. So campaign financing is still. And then if you're open to money and financing, then you'll be under the influence of people who give you the most money. And that is what happens sometimes in some of these small democracies, where you have big business and outside influence. You're able to influence what happens in the country to the detriment of the general population. So those are some matters we see going forward in terms of the new order, the new dispensation, which we want to deal. And like I said, we are hoping that we could get that in terms of a unity government, a coming together of coalition of the willing, like-minded people who want to take the country forward. Now, there are folks who oppose to the concept of a unity government, but I want to suggest to you, and just to remind you, because I'm sure most of you would know, that isn't anything new. Throughout our history, we have had parties, individuals coming together to form governments. It started as far as I know, as early in the early 60s, probably, where we had the Labour government reaching out across the waters to people like Eugene Walwyn, who was a member of a different party in Davis. I think it was the United National Party, and he was part of a Labour government, I think it was the early 60s. More recently, we had a coalition between the People's Action Movement and the NRP in 1980. That is how the Labour Party lost office in 1980 when the People's Action Movement and the NRP came together. More recently again, we have a coalition between, in fact, even if we look at before 2010, when NRP became a part of the Labour government, we see in 1993, when we had the impasse, it was an attempt then to bring a number of parties together. The Labour Party was trying to get the CCM to be part of an administration. That didn't work out. We were trying to get the NRP to be part of the administration. That didn't work out. The People's Action Movement was trying to get the NRP to be to be part of that government and to get CCM to be part of the government. In the end, the CCM said they will stand neutral. And so you had a coalition between NRP and the People's Action Movement. But you would understand that that was a minority government, because you had 5 members forming the government when you had 6 members sat on the opposition benches. But that was allowed to happen because for all material purposes, the People's Action Movement NRP administration had the support of the 2 members from CCM on the opposition benches. That was allowed. So that was possible. That was a minority government. As it stands now, we are 6 members of the opposition opposed to the government. That means that the government as it stands is an illegitimate government. 2 different things, 2 different circumstances, 2 different conditions. And I don't know why people are trying to confuse these things. This is like night and day. There's no comparison to 1993 and 2013. No comparison whatsoever. Anybody who understands government and politics, anybody who understands administration would know that those things are 2 different things. In 1993, you had a legitimate government, a minority government, because you had 4 members of the People's Action Movement, 1 member of the NRP forming the government, and they had, for all practical purposes, the support of 2 members of CCM on the opposition benches. That was an agreement. And that happens all over the world where you have minority government. A minority government, that is a government that does not have the majority of elected members, but have the support of other members on other parties. That is perfectly legitimate. Now it is different. The government does not have the support of 6 other members of parliament, and therefore is an illegitimate government. And the thing to do is that the government must either have the vote of no confidence or call the elections. What's happening, it is wrong. Plain and simple wrong. But we are God-fearing, peaceful, law-abiding people in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we are hoping that sooner rather than later, that situation will be resolved peacefully, amicably, and the country will settle down on a path towards rebuilding and healing the country and going forward. So that basically is my presentation. I hope I haven't taken too long, because I want to leave some time for discussion and dialogue and questions. But I just thought I'd give you the backbone as to where we are, where we came from, and where we would like to go. And so that basically, I want to thank you for listening to me with such patience, with such rapt attention, and to now turn it back over to the chairman and to say that I am available for any questions when question time comes. Anything that you're not clear about what I've said, and anything that you want to know. Even what I've not said, but what you want to have an idea of my thoughts on. So thank you very much.